Sweet. So Aaron, first and foremost, man, I'm really grateful you're able to give your time today for me and my audience to share your story and spread your message. I really enjoy consuming like the content you put out, and it's very, very like well put together. And I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into that a bit later. But to start us off, take us through kind of your transition period, leaving kind of high school in that time frame, and then bring us to where we are now, and then we can go back full circle.
Okay, fantastic. So leaving high school was I decided to go straight to university, straight out of high school, and so I went straight into a applied marketing degree. It was a 4-year degree, and the third year was a work year. So we kind of had to go, and we were sort of forced to go and get a job in the industry. And then I did 2 years in Melbourne, just studying full time. I then happened to get a job in Sydney. I'm from Melbourne, in Australia. So I moved to Sydney and my whole family moved up. I then worked for a year and a half while still full time, while still studying part time. After that, I quit my job, came back to Melbourne and finished my degree. After my degree, I was like, you know what? I really need to go and get some traveling done. My family, we've done a lot of traveling as a family, and I've been super grateful for that. But I needed to go and do something like by myself, or I went with one of my best friends to kind of like find yourself, you know, one of those trips. So I went with one of my best mates from school, and we did 8 months around Europe, Africa, and then I went to Southeast Asia with someone I met in Africa, a Canadian. And then overall it was 10 months of backpacking, which was insane.
Yeah.
I was a pretty broken man after that, but it was the most incredible trip ever. And I just learned so much. And then after that, I moved back to Sydney, as my family was still there. And then I got a job in an IT solutions business, and I worked in their marketing team for 2 years. After that, during probably in the last like 4 to 6 months of that job, they basically handed me a camera and editing software. And I'd never, ever touched a camera in my entire life. Like my entire 10-month trip, I had my iPhone, which was like an iPhone 7 or something. So like, I didn't take photos, I didn't take videos, I did nothing, which I know I massively regret.
Yeah, I'm like now probably more.
I know all of the stories that I have are just in my head. I've got no like ability to tell that story apart from just using stock footage. So that was a huge regret, unfortunately, but whatever, no regrets. They basically said, look, here's a camera, here's editing software, learn how to use this and start our YouTube channel and be our content lead for the business. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay, challenge accepted. Always love a challenge.
Yeah.
So kind of took that on, learnt pretty heavily, just all self-learning over about 4 months. And then I started doing some more in front of camera work for them and like promoting their products and services. And I was like,
oh, cool.
I actually really like this. Like, this is my jam. Like, I think this is what I've been missing in my life. Because back at school, I was creative, right? Like I played, you can probably see, I played piano and guitar, and I did a lot of musical theater and acting and presenting and all this kind of stuff. And I never found fulfillment in each of those kind of spaces by themselves.
Interesting.
But then when I kind of discovered YouTube, and I've consumed YouTube my entire life, but never considered myself being a YouTuber or a content creator.
Yeah.
When I discovered that, it was like the perfect synergy or blend of business mixed with creativity, mixed with like being able to express myself.
Amazing.
So after about 4 or 5 months of learning, I was like, you know what, I'm going to quit my job. So I quit my job cold turkey. And this was right in the middle of COVID.
Wow.
And in retrospect, it was kind of dumb because I don't know if you guys have heard, Victoria or Melbourne, especially in Australia, we've been in lockdown for 2 years. Well, a full year, basically. Yeah. We had 3 months of blissful period of being out of lockdown. And I was like, yes, we're out of lockdown. I've quit my job. I'm going to launch. I'm going to be a travel creator, blah, blah, blah.
Amazing.
Straight back into lockdown for 6 months.
No.
Yeah. So devastating. Absolutely devastating. So basically I was confined to the 4 walls of my house. I just tried to be as creative as possible, just learn how to edit properly, how to be a YouTuber. I really had no idea what I was doing. And just trying to create as much as I could from my home and from lockdown conditions. Fast forward 6 months from March 2021, I was like, you know what? I need to get a job. I need to get a job. I need to earn some money. So I got a job at a creative agency doing like part-time casual work. Then fast forward until March of this year.
Nice.
Is when I was like, I need to transition to short form content. So I started dabbling with TikToks. I made like 10. I started launching them within this 100 Days of Fear series.
Yeah.
And then it's and now we're here 3 months, 2.5 months later, 3 months later.
Amazing.
June.
Yeah, June, I think, late June, something like that. Interesting. So yeah. Wow.
So that was a lot. That was a lot of to unpack there.
No, that's awesome. There's what I'm wondering a lot of is, let's back up to that cold turkey moment. Yeah. So what kind of forced you into not like making that jump? Because I think there's a lot of people who are almost in that quiet, like depressive state where they're doing something they don't like. There's whether it be sitting down all day or they're just doing a job that demands something of them that they're not really that they don't enjoy, right? What made you what forced you to make that jump, like that immediate like cold turkey move?
It was a couple of things happened. I'd felt for the first time what flow state was. And I don't know if you've experienced flow state where it's just like the days blend into one and you're just working and working and working and working. And it's just like, you're just so focused and you're so passionate and
it's incredible. It's how much you can get done doing that. Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. And like, to be fair, like I haven't really experienced it since, but I'd never experienced it before. And I was like, firstly, it was incredible feeling to be able to do this. And I'd never felt so passionate about something and could see so much potential in it. In any other job that I'd done or seen anyone else do in my family, extended friends, something like that. So I was just like, if I don't make, and I had lots of conversations with my family and my friends about like, is this the right choice? Should I do this? And I was 25 at the time. I'm 26 now. So, not young, not old, obviously, but kind of right in the middle. Like this is the 20s for your experimentation and taking big risks.
Exactly.
But it was a big risk. But it was like, if I don't try this now, I'm going to forever be wondering what if.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I was super grateful that my family allowed me to come back home. Because at the time, for 6 months, I wasn't working, earning any money. And it was COVID. So it was even more challenging.
Yeah.
So I basically just like heads down, bums up, one video a week, learn as much as I can and just use it as a real learning space. But I think it was more just this unbelievable fire in my stomach of like, I need to do this. If I don't do this, what's going to like, nothing, I'm going to die wondering. So yeah, that pushed me. That honestly, that feeling of passion and that fire just pushed me to make that decision.
I think that's, first of all, that's incredible. I think that's something to be said with the wondering of what if might happen if they don't do something. And I found a lot, not so much lately, or more lately than in the past, where it's these decisions. I'm like, oh, I want to do this adventure or this expedition. I'm like, I don't know if it's sustainable. Like, how are other people going to react? Yeah. Right. That's the big one. Like if I say I want to do this, or I'm going to go embark, or I have to tell these people I'm going to stop working. Yes. Like what happens then? Right. And that's a weird thing.
It's a fear of the unknown, right? It's a fear of, well, it's a mixture of fear. Like I personally believe that it's like all of these kind of decisions do stem from a fear of some sort. Right. But it's like, it's a fear that also you can practice. You can practice getting better at. And this is kind of what I'm practicing with this current series is like continually pushing myself out of my comfort zone. How do I feel now? Like, do I feel more confident jumping into something that's unknown, or do I care less about the fear of judgment and those kind of things? And I do believe that actually does happen. So it is, and just on that note as well, something that really helped me make that decision was a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, by Susan Jeffers. And it is by far and away the best book I've ever read and the most pivotal and transformational book that I've read.
Wow.
Just in terms of my thinking, in terms of like the realization of how much fear was holding me back, and then being able to just like put into words and like vocalize my thoughts in my head. And it's amazing. A book you can read. There's so much to unpack into it. But it's so powerful that actually I'll give this example. Sorry, I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent.
No, do your thing.
My 86-year-old grandmother, she has lived through the war. She's from Hungarian, has moved to Australia, like some horrific conditions, and has lived a life. She's been quite full of anxiety. And a bit of depression, and just like a lack of confidence in herself to be able to do things. And she's all these kind of things have impacted her. Anyway, she really wanted to be a secretary for this club, that's like this elderly club. But she was like, "Oh, there's no way I can do that. I just don't have the confidence. I'm like way too scared that I'll stuff it up." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I was like, "Read this book, and just read it." Anyway, she read it and she was like, "You know what? I'm going to take this secretary job."
Let's go.
And she's absolutely thriving. And I'm just like, if my 87-year-old grandmother can like do that, and from this, like read this book and do that, like literally anyone can. So I'm just so inspired by her and and how she has actually taken action from reading this book, and then, felt the fear and did it anyway, really. So, yeah.
Interesting. And I think that's what I like, that note you touched on with like her, how she inspired you, because that's kind of what drew me to you mainly, right? Okay. Because like I'm turning 26 in like 2 weeks. So like,
welcome to the club, my friend.
Yeah. So thank you, man. Thank you. It's it'll be good.
Downhill from here. No, I'm kidding.
That's what I hear. People keep telling me don't get old, and I'm like, well, I haven't figured out how to go backwards yet. So until I do, I'll keep going forward.
Benjamin Button me.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, so that was kind of what drew me into you. Was I found inspiration, and not just so much how easy it was to digest what you were doing, but like, let's back up a bit though. Can you tell people about like the Fear series, or let's talk about that real quick, just so, because you mentioned it and I wanted to explain it a little bit more for people who may not know. So if you don't mind doing that, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I kind of, I've been experimenting with, I've been very inspired by a group called Yes Theory, and their motto is seek discomfort. And like the best experiences and deepest connections happen outside your comfort zone. So, combined by getting inspired by them, and as well as realizing, having read this book and reading a lot of personal development books and kind of being on this new personal development journey, I'd kind of uncovered how much fear I had and how afraid I was of so many things, to the point where, both big and little fears, to the point where I was like calling up the dentist and had like mad anxiety about just speaking on the phone to a stranger. And I was like, something's got to change, something's got to change. And having done about 6 to 8 months of YouTube, and like I just experimented. I did one of the most uncomfortable experiences I did was like a life modeling, which was like, if you've never heard of life modeling, it's basically nude modeling.
I was going to say I was going to ask you what the most worst one was, but I can imagine.
So that was by far and away the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. But I've been experimenting with pushing myself out my comfort zone, and realized that it had such a huge shift in my mindset. So I was like, but towards the start of this year and end of last year, I was like, I'm just still feel really shit in general about how I was feeling confidence wise. And, a lot of things in my previous jobs and my career had kind of impacted my confidence. And if we want to get into that later, we absolutely can.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was like, you know what, there's like, I need something I want to be a content creator. I have this desire to improve myself and hopefully inspire other people to improve themselves. And so, what's like a sticky, what's the word? Strategy, I suppose, is like doing some sort of 100 days of something, or 50 days of something, or 10 days of something. And I wanted that stickiness from a strategic perspective. And I'd seen YouTubers like Kara and Nate who did like visiting 100 countries. They're like travel YouTubers. And I was like, I want to do that, but with like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. So I kind of like combined those. And I was like, okay, 100 days of fear. And it's basically 100 days of something outside my comfort zone. And so, yeah, I've done 23 days. It's not every day, just FYI. It's not every day. I started doing every day and I burnt out within 7 days. I'm trying to like film, organize, edit, load, everything, just impossible.
That in and of itself is out of a comfort zone, right?
Yeah, well, that's
like,
and it's just literally unachievable by
it's
myself.
Daily vlogging for 100 days.
Correct.
You know?
And I've seen people do it before and burn out in like 10 days. And I'm like, you know what? I need this to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And to still be able to put effort into each video and have each video be its own kind of thing, you know?
Nice.
So then, yeah, I literally just kind of got started with like super basic challenges. And then I'm on day 23 or 4 now, and just like planning ahead and continually, you know, a couple of videos a week. And it's just had the most, I just can't explain how important it is to push yourself out of your comfort zone and push this practice this muscle. It's like working out, right? Yeah. This is a muscle, and it's something that can be practiced. It's something that can be worked on. And I've also on the side of this, I've started like a boot camp, like a fear-facing boot camp. And we're working with people from all around the world, from Bulgaria, from the UK, from the US. And it's, again, we're kind of setting this kind of thing up, and it's working really well. And it's proving that it is a muscle that can be practiced. And when you do take action, you do actually build that confidence. So that's kind of that's my life at the moment.
Amazing. I like what you said with like what I used to say so when I used to work at an outdoor center, and I would run like a leadership program. So a 2-week leadership program, and then there'd be a week off and then 2 weeks back in. Anyways, we talked a lot about comfort zone, and then we kind of used that topic to touch on leadership styles and then bridge that into going on trip for the first time, right? It's like a 5-day canoe trip out in somewhere in Ontario, right? So it was kind of, we use that as a way to set the tone to what to expect, right? Or like get used to being outside of their comfort zone. And I would use it to describe, like, I would almost describe it this way, where it's like, you want to make, every time you put something in the circle, your confidence or your comfort zone grows. And then it grows to the point where you can never leave it. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's kind of how my brain understands it. I mean, it could be different for you, but that's kind of how I understand like the comfort zone and the way we interact with it, and the way like it's there. I love being comfortable, but I hate it. You know, like
it's weird never being like, comfort zone is comfort, right? It's like, it's nice, it's cozy, but in terms of like, if you want to grow, and if like mentally, physically, even going to the gym is uncomfortable, you know what I mean? Like that's pushing your comfort zone. And just turning up to the gym is getting out of your comfort zone. So I think, you know, it's very easy. Like it's an easy, I can't remember this quote, but it's like hard choices, easy choices, hard life, easy choices.
Amazing. Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. I'm pretty sure.
And that's what that is, right? So I think it's just, you have to decide for yourself, you know, what you want. And obviously, and I know a lot of people who are very happy to be in their comfort zone. But I do think that the people you meet and the experiences you can have when you do push yourself out of your comfort zone is just like greatly outweighs the discomfort itself. So I think,
it's kind of incredible, right? And what I want to know, do you have a good example of that, of somebody where if you had not made the initial decision or choices to leave your comfort zone and to like scale it, like don't just like not taking a step out of it, but you're like, dude, you're like not breaking into places, but like you're going into places, like when you went in with a ladder and a vest, like it's not breaking in because people see you when you're walking in, like, but what's crazy to me is I'm like, what is happening? So that's not a step outside. That's like walking straight through. But
I guess what I want to know is like, what do you like, how do you make those like transitions? Like, what is the biggest thing that you can kind of attest to that? Like you get it, like getting out of that.
As in, what kind of activity have I done? Or
yeah, like, oh, sorry. What's a good example of somebody or something that you've kind of discovered even about yourself that you wouldn't have figured out or met in this case with people, have you not kind of take that initial leap?
Yeah, well, like honestly, just the opportunities that have opened up, having now pushed myself out my comfort zone and pushed myself out there into the world, is insane. Like it's just, and like I think just being able to, you know, let's say as an example, just putting myself out there to be a content creator was so uncomfortable for me, because, you know, making these videos and being kind of bad at them at the start and showing them to my friends and like that was, you know, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. But then to the point now where, you know, I'm going to be working with brands, and I'm going to be, you know, getting experiences and meeting people and going on trips and stuff. And I think what happens when you start putting yourself out of your comfort zone, not even just from like in a work perspective, like, you know, if you asking for a pay rise or asking for a promotion is so uncomfortable. It's super, super uncomfortable. And I think, but like when you do it, and I've had lots of people message me on Instagram saying, you know, I've seen your videos and I've since asked my boss, or I've since gone for that job and I've got it. And I'm like, this is sick. Amazing. And like, as another example, someone, a woman messaged me recently and just told me this story about how she decided to, her friend bailed on this, like, this, not festival, but it was like, it was a ball or something. Anyway, she's like, I'm still going to go by myself because I've seen your videos. I've seen you've done it. And then she started feeling really uncomfortable, but then she like just went up to someone and asked someone to dance. And then they became best friends. They turned out that they lived around the corner from each other, and now they're just like best mates and like are hanging out. And I'm like, that's what happens. Those are the experiences and the people you can meet that are incredible when you push yourself, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can have bad experiences, but it's all learning, right? And just even just your own mental health and your own and your like your mental fitness, and just being more internally confident that you can handle that situation is the biggest power of doing all of this kind of stuff. Like even, for example, like give me 6 months ago, I would have been ridden with anxiety before our call today. You just absolutely like, you know, oh, absolutely. Like you know, I was just so unconfident in myself to be able to string a sentence together, to be able to talk, to be able to, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then it's just like the continual practice of that. You know, I personally feel fantastic, and I love.
Yeah, dude, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And you're doing a great job too. So,
oh, thanks. Try my best.
No, it's fantastic, and I just so yeah, I suppose that was a long-winded way of saying thank you for having me on the podcast.
Amazing. I want to back up to something because I think it's very important. We were touching on confidence and comfort zone. What? Let's go through those examples of how jobs can kind of, or that you've experienced, where they can kind of hinder your confidence, or just kind of, they make you like, you turn into almost a different version of yourself.
Yeah. Right.
Like you're less excited about things. You're a bit more negative, maybe more anxious about things, more depressed maybe. But what experiences have you had where, like, what examples have jobs taken away confidence?
Yeah. Look, unfortunately, my first couple of roles I experienced workplace bullying to a certain degree. And I was really young, and I was really impressionable, and I really struggled with it. And it was only a select couple of people that did it. But then, you know, when this is your first job in the industry, of your career, you were still studying part-time, you were living away from home, like all these things. And it got to the point where it was just like, I couldn't do it. I felt like I couldn't do anything right. I felt like there was not a single thing I would say, I could say without being shut down or something like that. maybe in my
Yeah.
mind, maybe like thinking back, it might have been a bit different, and maybe I had over exacerbated things. But at the time, and upon reflection, which I have gone into lots of detail with, I've seen therapists and psychologists because I think they are the best tool to anyone, and I cannot recommend everyone seeing someone at least once or twice or 3 times or whatever. I think they help you understand you. They help you understand your thoughts and how to work through them. So I truly believe, like, yes, they're expensive, but they're absolutely worth it. Even if you think you're okay and you don't suffer from anxiety or depression or anything like that, I still recommend them. But
no kidding.
So I think those first few years where I was so impressionable and I had some pretty rough experiences, they impacted me and stuck with me basically my whole career. And it was really unfortunate, but I suppose, and I suppose this was also another big ticket reason why I decided to take this plunge into my own thing, because I was like, well, I can't seem to do anything right for other businesses, and I feel like I'm so unfulfilled working for someone else.
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm going to try this for myself to prove to myself that I could do this, like, selfishly. You know what I mean? That I am actually able, and I can build that confidence within myself. So yeah, so it's kind of like I suppose a little bit of a different way of approaching it. But does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does for sure. It's frustrating because I've found that I almost felt, in my experience, I couldn't quite be myself. Like, I guess I just felt there was too much judgment, or maybe the style of the workplace just wasn't me. It was more just like a sit down office type. And that kind of didn't allow me to go out, be myself, do my own thing. And then it was like, oh, I got to do this, but I don't really feel enthusiastic. I'm only actually enjoying a certain section of the day whenever I'm like out of the office or working with clients in this, like, there's very, very specific things. And like, how do we find a way to I can't do something repetitively. Like, it's just the consistency of doing something, just kind of, if it's not changing every like week or two or every couple of weeks max, it's kind of, I don't know, this could be for you as well, but yeah, just my brain needs to be like, my mind responds to change really well. So I don't, nothing really bothers me about it, but I can't be doing the same thing for too long, or else it's just frustrating.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. It's interesting. And I'll just throw it back on you as well. What has been your experience with kind of like with fear and with discomfort and those kinds of things? Like, how have you kind of built up your confidence to starting a business, as you told me earlier, and all these kind of things? Like, what's been your journey?
So my journey with it is kind of, I felt really grateful. So a lot of people don't know. But when I started out, kind of when I was in my teenage years to like late adult or early adult, late teen, I worked at a summer camp and outdoor centers, and I kind of went back and forth. And so this would be like 4 months out of the summer, right? So my last 2 years of high school, and then the rest of and then throughout like college. So doing all that, we were forced to almost be like, you were forced to, not forced, right, lack of a better term, but you had to speak in front of groups often. You had to, our whole thing was focused on creative programming, which is kind of, okay, you have this, and this, and you have like 2 minutes to come up with a game that can make everybody entertained for X amount of time, or having to do these skits and prepare these shows that, kind of, as silly as they were, and like they were bad, but looking back on it, it's kind of been a lot of a reason, like, I don't care, especially it's kind of that, right? Like, it's like my brother and I dressed up as Batman, my brother dressed up as the Joker. There were like 40 kids, adults, whatever. There's like a bit of a mix, and we're kind of putting on this performance that we just kind of come up with a bit on the spot. So when you put yourself in a vulnerable position, and every time you do that, you have to, like, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about making that comfort zone grow. And then, so me speaking in front of people isn't a problem. Yeah. Right. Like, I almost don't mind it, because it's easier for me to speak in front of people I don't know than it is for me to speak in front of people I do know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't care what these people really think, because like, it doesn't really matter. But at the same time,
you've also practiced it. You've also practiced that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a bit more on it as well, like more off the cuffs. Like, I used to never in college rehearse a presentation. Everybody like was very upset because they're like, well, dude, you're in our group, you need to be like prepared and everything. I'm like, we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Got this.
Just, out of the park every time. And that's something that I look back on, was like, I was grateful because I was able to remain calm. So I was able to think a bit clearly.
That's cool.
Right. Which is the whole idea when it comes to, we'll use public speaking, for example. That's something that when you speak in front of people, if you're not calm, you're not able to think clearly, and your brain loses oxygen. If we're going down to like a finite way of looking at it, then you lose oxygen to your brain. You can't think, you can't focus, you get stressed out, you get anxious. And all those things are not putting you in the moment of what you have 100%. To do, right?
Yeah.
You can think of whatever techniques, or like visualizing everybody in their underwear and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I found just the confidence of doing it, back to what we've been talking about the whole time, is like doing something more and more kind of allows you to be able to have the confidence to do it later when you need it in a different setting, thankfully. So
100%. Yeah, that's a perfect way to summarize that. Yeah. And you practice that muscle, right? You built up the strength in that muscle, right?
Right. I think it's the more you do something, the more you get comfortable. And do you think, I'm wondering if you have any examples of what is something you did that you like, what was the scariest one for you, like beforehand?
Let me just get them up, because I just need to re-look at which ones they were. I think so. From like within this challenge, I think the scariest one that I've done, look, probably the music festival. Definitely music festival. I went to a music festival by myself, never done that before. And I was just like, I'd always wanted to, but I was like, again, just ridden with anxiety. I was just like, what's going to happen? Am I going to make friends? Am I not? Am I going to be standing by myself just for the entire time? And so that was probably just because it was such a monster of an effort. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was just like such a huge effort. But again, just worked out brilliantly. And like if you just go and ask, and you just go and chat to strangers, and then you just meet people, and then it's all about like, there's definitely, what I'm sort of discovering is that there is a skill to learn with sort of to learn and to be able to practice, and that can be practiced and learned, to like talking to strangers, breaking down those first few barriers, the kind of energy, that kind of positive energy that you bring through certain things, like, smiling, and certain sentences you say to like break down the barriers initially. So like, there is almost like a formulaic, or what I'm kind of discovering is there is a formulaic way to be able to break down barriers and to be able to like have positive experiences. So that's something that I'm sort of slowly distilling into a format to be able to share. So that's also something that I'm sort of working on at the moment. But cool. I think that one, and without a doubt, performing live. Was just, it's so funny because like during school, I did this so much, like performance and musicals and singing and blah, blah, blah. And then like having not done it for like 7 years or whatever it's been since school, and then trying to do it again, it's just like, it's so terrifying.
Jeez.
So anyway,
no kidding.
Yeah, I think those two have been the most scared I've been.
Do you have like a strategy? Like how is the strategy developed as like from the beginning of like challenging yourself and challenging that comfort zone of yours and challenging your fears? How is that strategy developed for you from the first time you kind of started with the idea to where we are now?
Do you mean from like a personal, like the way I approach a thing?
Yes.
Like okay, cool. I think it started with just like honestly, I just need to go for it. Like it's the count. I have like a 5-second rule where it's like, if I've got, let's say need to go and talk to a stranger, it's like I count to 5. If I haven't done it within that 5 seconds. Like I have to do it within that 5 seconds. I give myself no choice. But if I don't, bang, straight onto the next one, another 5 seconds. I'm not like waiting around, because what I've realized is like the more you just go, oh, no, next, oh, no, next, you know, and avoid the people, the less of a chance you're actually going to do it. So I think the biggest strategic shift for me has just been, well, starting was just like, just go and try as best as you can. And now it's more like, how far can I push this? Because I don't have issues with talking to strangers or with pitching really random things to strangers, like going on a spontaneous road trip or dinner date or any of those kind of things.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
so random.
I love it. It's awesome. It's awesome.
I'm now trying to like push the limits to see how far I can push myself out of my comfort zone. But also, and what I was mentioning to you yesterday off the call, which was like having kind of like a filter of like, sort of like my filter is all of my content has to go through the filter of the average person will be able to do it. So I'm not trying to, which kind of from a strategic perspective helps with relatability, helps with being able people being able to connect with it because they can see themselves in the situation, rather than I survived 24 hours in quicksand or something ridiculous that, you know, you are seeing like a lot of big YouTubers doing because they've got huge budgets. They're just pushing themselves to the extreme and it's great for entertainment. My view is not that. Yes, that gets views, but I think I would much prefer to focus less on the views and more on the impact of being relatable, and then being, you know, hopefully being like, oh well, I've shown I can do it. So then someone else, if they see it and go, oh well, why can't I? You know, I think that's one of the most powerful shifts in your mindset, is just like from I can't do it to why can't I do it? Why not me? So I think being able to try and push that through my messaging, push that through my videos, and then just get more and more kind of bigger ideas, but like still achievable by the average person if they choose to do it.
Amazing. So on that, I like that we transitioned here. I want to know, because it is very digestible, it's inspirational, and very relatable, right? And I want to know, what's your creative process like when it comes to kind of choosing ideas for videos and where you or stories to tell? Like, what's that creative process look like?
It's really hard. I think my biggest downfall for me personally is ideation, because there's just like, I'm so deep in content in the industry of like, I've seen every YouTuber do everything. So it's like, I really struggle to come up with an idea that hasn't already been done, or to just try and like change things. So for me personally, I think I spend a lot of time on ideation because I know that's a massive kind of issue for me. And it's also one of the most important aspects is like, if you don't, and this is what I'm realizing with some videos I've been posting recently that haven't been performing as well, just from, I'm talking now specifically performance as a content creator.
Like as an
analytical perspective. It's like, you know, it comes down to the idea and how important and like explaining why it's important for the audience to watch and keeping them retained and all of those kinds of things. But I think my creative process has been, you know, I spend at least 1 hour to 2 hours a day on ideation, or like about 1 hour a day on ideation, just like spamming out like hundreds of shite ideas until I see one and I'm like, oh, maybe I can add this to that. And you know what I mean? So then formulate and like that whiteboard gets used a lot. And because there's so many ideas you need to come up with, then it's like, okay, what can I do every week? And I try and do 2, sometimes 3 videos a week. Then from there, it's like the planning, reaching out to companies, you know, all of those kinds of things. Then it's the actual writing the script, the rough script, and you know, plotting out the story of how I envision it to be. And this might be sort of like a different way of doing it, but sometimes I like write how I would want the video to be like, and then I go and do the experience, and then I just adjust it to what actually happened in the experience.
Okay, interesting.
So just so it helps me kind of, it's almost like helps me think through the creative ideas of like how to shoot this angle, how to like, do I need to get more people? Do I need to get more interactions with people? Do I need to get more me struggling? That kind of thing. And then also at the same time, I've thought through what the potential challenges might be, so that I can then ensure that I just get the right shots, basically, build a shot list. And then obviously I go and do the experience, I shoot the experience, I then edit it, voiceover, launch. So that's kind of like it's basically the same process for whether you do YouTube, whether you do short movies, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's basically the same creative process. But I think the most time I spend on is probably definitely ideation by far.
Nice. Yeah. So one thing I've kind of found with the importance of when it comes to being like the creative process and the storytelling, the one thing I've kind of found is if you're able to find, not just be, I think relatability is the biggest thing, right? I think what draws me into it, because like you said, you're like, yes, every like big YouTuber grows and they get it where they
become less
$4 million
relatable
budget a month. And it's like,
yeah,
all right, settle down. So yeah, I think that when it comes to the relatability, I see videos that are like, they give really good, very good like way of telling the story and what they want, but I almost don't feel, and this is more on like the self-improvement side of it too, not so much just the big vlog style videos, but that watching all these, I don't feel like they say the words that I'm relating to, but I almost don't find a way to, I almost can't, like, I don't connect to them. It could just be whether like how clean something is or how, I think connecting to the audience is huge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's definitely one of the hardest things to do but to connect with an audience, you need to tap into their deepest emotions, right?
Yeah.
You need to make them feel sad, or you need to make them feel angry or happy, or all of those really deep emotions. And that's difficult to do. But it's also what's going to differentiate you from everyone else. And I think if you want to see a really brilliant storyteller, TikToker, I would recommend checking out Philip QVU on TikTok. Brilliant storytelling. I think he absolutely nails, well, firstly, storytelling in short form. But just being able to connect with the audience and relate with the audience, even though he's just telling his own story. It's like daily vlogs that he basically does, but in just such an incredible way. So definitely check him out in terms of someone to be inspired by, or to potentially just watch and absorb his kind of his style.
Interesting. That's incredible. Now, what I'm curious about a little bit is, you've been to a lot of countries. What I want to know is, did you ever run into any issues like filming anything, or did you what was something really big that stood out as like an obstacle or you had to face or encounter? It could be with people or just an actual logistic thing.
Well, from a filming perspective, I was lucky enough to go to Dubai with another travel YouTuber, and he hired me to come along. And yes, from like a filming perspective, it was impossible, because in Dubai, the UAE, they just hate being filmed and filming the public. There's just a huge amount of restrictions around there. But in terms of the trip that I went on, look, again, I didn't really film much, but I think from just like you're always going to experience things that, there were certain pivotal things that really shook me and impacted me. And, two examples was, one, I got robbed at knife point in Vietnam, which was just, terrifying. And second was witnessing a guy, a 25-year-old, who fell off his surfboard. This was actually also in Vietnam. Fell off his surfboard and became a paraplegic like instantly. And I was the only person who spoke English there. And he was like 150 kilo dude who we had to like drag in like 200 meters into the thing couldn't feel a thing. He almost drowned. So like I had like pretty mega PTSD after that. That was really full on. And it's funny because we had an incredible, basically risk-free trip. Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing bad really happened for 9 out of those 10 months that I was traveling. And I was just so lucky because sometimes, you know, I've had friends who's told me the most horrific stories of, you know, getting chased by the mafia and like legit stuff, like no joke. And it's, you know, terror. And I was so lucky. I was so grateful that nothing really bad happened to me. But then it was like at the very end of my trip, some of these things happened. And it's funny because while I was just on the terms of like personal development, like this kind of stuff really got me started into personal development, because I started experiencing anxiety for the first time post these experiences. And I'd never experienced anxiety to what I now know anxiety to be like. And it's funny because like I don't see it, as in obviously it was a horrific experience, but I wouldn't have changed that experience, because these challenging moments are what help you understand, firstly, yourself a bit more, but also I feel like I'm able to empathize now with people who do feel anxiety, who do experience anxiety more so. And it's just like from a simply personal growth perspective, it's like you kind of just got to be able to know when you need help, which is again when I saw psychologists is post these experiences, and to help me understand why I was so upset and feeling these ways, right? But then, it just kind of like leads you down a whole nother journey. So I think, I don't know, I think that was a bit more of a tangent of your question. But I don't know. Yeah, just know in yourself that like you just need to go and seek help when you need to seek help, and there's no shame in that. You know, I think that's been a huge lesson for me. Is there's never any shame in being vulnerable with yourself and with others. And I hope to kind of share more of that as I go on.
How do you deal? You talk a lot about, and what I'm curious about is how do you deal with the self-doubt? It comes from like solo creating, doing the stuff by yourself, coming up with these ideas and going through it all, and having like, you're putting yourself out there, right? The reward is immense. It's incredible, and it's only going to get more incredible. But the risk part of it, where you're putting yourself out there, right? Like you just said, you like the vulnerability is okay. You're used to it or getting used to it. But how do you deal with the self-doubt of it all?
Mate, great question, firstly. Secondly, it's really hard. It's very, very difficult. And I think the biggest thing, how do I deal with that, is 2 ways. 3 ways, actually. One, surrounding myself with, because, you know, we're on social media all the time. I try and be on it less nowadays, but we're on social media all the time. So like creating a space where you're surrounded by positivity and positive messaging is super important. So and I know people think Gary Vee is very polarizing and some hate him, some love him. I love him. I think he has, if you really dig deep, if you go beyond just the kind of what he seems to be like a very big energy, all about himself, he's got unbelievable value. And I think following people like him, Yes Theory, Sorella Moore, basically kind of, what's that word? Curating my social media profile so that when I'm scrolling, I'm surrounded by positivity rather than crap. So I found that to be a really, really fantastic sort of strategy for myself. Second part is reading a lot of books and reading a lot of personal development books. Like I've probably read 30 personal development books, which is probably a bit excessive, but I've learned, and because they start being very similar. That's true. But again, it's kind of like practicing that muscle, as I was talking about before. It's just like, you read it and then you reinstill it. And it's almost like retraining your brain, or like almost brainwashing yourself to think positively and help you visualize. And so I think that's been a really important one. And thirdly, the most important one is being able to talk to family and friends. I think like having a network, like even last night, I was sitting down with my dad at the TV, and I was just like, am I making the right decision by doing all of this? Like, I'm still yet to earn money from this kind of venture. It's only been a few months really, but like, I'm still yet to earn money and all these kind of different things. And I was just like experiencing that self-doubt. Like it's a daily thing, right? But it's like, we just talked about it, and we were just very open with each other about it. And I was very grateful for that chat. And it's kind of like reset me, it's like given that pep in my step again. It's like, you know what? My 20s are for taking big risks, and it's okay if I don't earn money for a while. And, I'm so grateful to be living at home still while I'm doing this startup phase. And, 26 isn't old, you've got your whole life. And so, you know what I mean? So exactly. So I think, even though I battle with that every day, man, like I battle oh my God, like I'm turning 27 at the end of this year, and like blah, 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 blah. I should be further along in my life. My friends are having kids and getting married. And
anyway. I'll send you a video later on. It's a video I sent to a few friends of mine who, because we're all doing this, we're all thinking the same. We're like, I want to do all these trips. I want to start all these businesses. I want to go to all these places. I want to do all these things.
We want to do everything.
I want to invest in this. I want to build that. It's like, basically the guy sums it up really well, but the moral of it all, and I'll send it to you later for more clarification. You can interpret it how you want, but slow down. Right. That's the whole big thing. Cause my buddy calls me out on it, but then I call him out on it at the same time. So it's like, dude, I'm like missing out. I got money in the bank, but I don't know I can't invest it. But what do I invest it in that I don't have time? But if I, and then you battle about rent and then all these things and relationships, and you're like, it's tough.
And it's funny you mentioned about the slowing down. Like there's a quote that comes to mind, which is the Marines, which is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And that's a motto that they use. And I'm like, I love that so much. It's the special forces. It's like, when you slow down, you're going smoothly. And when you're going smoothly continuously, you're actually going fast. And I'm like, I love that. Like, I think, and that's something that you just, and you're absolutely right. And again, being just as an example, like I feel like you've just had a bit of a reset in me. I just need to slow things down. Like I'm going too fast. And I think being able to talk and be vulnerable about this stuff is the most important thing. Because if we hadn't had any conversation, we wouldn't have had this conversation. And you know what I mean? Like, and I think, I think that's just really important to be able to do.
100%. Right. And it allows you to address the thoughts that you're having and then curate, like almost when you understand, you can put words to them. And then you can, once you identify the problem, you can kind of take action a bit easier. Right.
And realize you're not alone as well. You just said all of your mates have experienced the same thing. It's like, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And even though you're like very rarely ever the only one, right?
Never, right?
So exactly. Yeah, almost never. So I think that's really, really
But
important.
It definitely feels like you are when you're going through it, right?
100%.
It's bad.
It's bad. It's bad.
No. It's like, no, trust me. Buddy's like, I'm getting married. I'm doing this. And I'm like, man, I got to do it. Dude, slow down. Like, I'm a couple years older than you. We're like, relax. Like, you still got so much time. It's like, and then I'm working on almost kind of compartmentalizing doing different things is something like I'm trying to do, and not because like I want to learn this, I want to learn that, I want to learn this, but I can't get good at everything.
Anything. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Because then if you have you ever seen Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
So Ron Swanson, my spirit animal, says he says something like, he's like, don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing, right? So he allows you
absolutely
to
love that. Yeah, I absolutely love that quote.
Greatest thing ever, right? So I hear that, and I find myself revisiting that when it's like, oh, why are you trying to learn 7 different things? It's like, focus on one skill, hyper focus, do it every day. More often than not, it'll take you, if you focus on 5 things over the course of a year, but if you focus on 2 things over the course of the same amount of time, you're going to get that much better, right?
And that even, you can even like micro that even further, to like only focus on 2 things a day, as in like having 2 main priorities, right? Like, and then you, over time, you'll just get more efficient. And that's something I struggle with, is just like, I have like 1,000 things I need to do in that day, but then I get none of them done well or at all. You know what I mean? So like, just I'm sort of realizing is like, you can even take that concept and distill it into a daily or weekly thing of having a couple of main focuses, getting them done really well, and then moving on to the next one. It's like multitasking is just, a myth. Like,
it's controlled in a way, right? And I think what happened is when I'm training for this, like this marathon swim this summer, and back in February.
10Ks?
Woo! It will not be fun. The whole idea is I have like fear of open water.
So the actual swimming idea is like, it's not difficult. Like I know how to swim well, and I've swam in open water before, but swimming like a distance that long, it's been a while. Every part of it will like be challenging. So but with that is in February, I was swimming in a pool, and I was like, it was a weird, like very, very like depressive week, like depressive episode for the week that I was kind of going through, and just internally. And I just felt overwhelmed with everything and trying to do everything. And like, I was like letting people down by doing certain things. And there was the not saying no to other things. But what I ended up kind of figuring out is I did a reflection while I was just swimming, because I swam like 2 hours straight. So like, I'm all in my head, right? Like you don't like, I mean, right. Not stopping. So 2 hours just in my head. And I'm like, you know, I thought back to the time that I was most efficient with getting a lot of things done, which was in school. We had like 7 classes, but I still had to get everything done for the deadlines. How do we end up doing that? Well, on Monday, I did 1, 2, 3 things, and I didn't even think about the others. And then it allowed me to hyper focus on fewer things. And like you said, get it done more effectively, and then bring it into that micro level where the 2 things in one day, and you get it's smooth, right? Fast, right? So,
yeah.
That kind of allowed me to do that. So
that's so interesting. And also on that, in a slightly different way, like the whole meditative state of like having some time away from everything, and you're just swimming, right?
Like
and
everything,
it's just like, you're just focused on, it's so meditative. And I think that's also an important point to mention, is like ensuring you have time away from it all, so that you give your brain space to reflect, which is so hard to do when you want to do everything, right? And you want to just like, brutal, like, but you like forcing yourself to either meditate for a period of time every day, or to take those breaks on weekends. It's so easy to just work 7 days a week, right? And then you're suddenly burnt out, and you're like, oh, why am I burnt out? It's like, oh, well, of course, you know. I feel like you've been there. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, too familiar. But
yeah, exactly. So.
And I think that's why, though, to your point, when because I've been like doing a lot of research on this the last couple months, and trying to understand what's the best way to almost ground yourself, or like you said, like bring yourself back to like a flow state of like living where you don't feel overwhelmed or burnt out, right? Where you have the energy to be at your best. And that's why I think like nature, like being out in nature, is one that's come up a lot. Like people have different forms of meditation, but the one that's kind of worked for me, because just my brain, as I can imagine yours is, if not more, is just like always going, right? Like it's
horrific.
Like,
midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., still going.
Eyes wide awake, and like, what's going on? Like thinking of stuff everywhere all the time. It's so trying to find that way to almost like remove myself from it. And whether it's walking the dog, or trying to find a way to go fishing, or getting lost in like these places where you don't have service, is almost that in and of itself is my meditation. And that's, I think, also part of why like the swimming challenge that I'm kind of I'm kind of looking to embark on, is going to be like, is the means to that, where I found I'm like very, very calm when, like you said, you have the space in your head to zone out, and it's no distractions, because you can't check your phone when you're in the water in your bathing suit going, right? There's 100%. No, if you're on a walk or a run, yes, you can. So it's like you said, finding that space to do that. But do you have like, what's your meditation process like? Do you have a system that works for you, or do you just,
I go through like seasons of meditation. Like I've been bad the last like 2 months. But prior to then, I would be like meditating for like only 10 minutes in the morning. That's all. And I felt like it was just this giant relief off my day. And I could just like, it would just help ground me, focus me. Now I've sort of been doing it a little bit on and off in the evenings. And it's funny, the busier you get, the harder it is to get into the state of meditation, which is why it's important to continue. And that's something I'm going to be working on as of now, really, to get back into the rhythm of. But I've found meditation to just be unbelievably helpful, just in every aspect of my life, to the point where, and this might be a bit TMI, but I used to get really bad like heartburn, where I was on drugs for like 7 years just to help it. And then I saw all these doctors, and I saw, naturopath and all these people, and like nothing helped. And I was like, I can't stay on these drugs because they're just going to destroy my insides. And I'd already been on really strong drugs for like many years.
You're over it at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went to this naturopath, and she's like, oh, we tried all these bloody concoctions and all this kind of shit, and nothing worked. And then she's like, I think you just need to try to meditate, or like you've got something on your chest or something in you that you need to just release. She's like, maybe see a witch doctor. And she like legitimately suggested this, like a witch doctor or and I was like, oh my God, okay, that's a bit too far for my taste. But you know what? I'll give meditation a crack.
Yeah.
No joke. Like this, every time I think about it, it's just bananas. No joke. Within 2 weeks, heartburn completely disappeared. The drugs completely after 7 years of using them. Gone. Haven't really had it since.
What?
It's like, and what I've kind of reflected on is that I was in such a state of fight or flight my whole life up to there, especially post traveling and all those experiences happening. And, you know, there was so much tension, and your gut is so linked to your brain. And so my brain was always in like fight or flight, and thus my gut was always in fight or flight. And so therefore meditating and being able to release the tension was able to relax my gut and relax that connection between my brain, and therefore take the pressure away from what was causing the heartburn. So yeah, and it's just it's funny. I also notice every time I'm stressed and I haven't done meditation, it comes back. It comes back, and so then I meditate, disappears again, and it's just like, so yeah, I definitely if you're experiencing anything like that, I highly recommend it.
That's kind of crazy that's something that's interesting. That's a cool way of your body telling you to kind of
to slow down,
and
just stop and like just pause and just reflect and just and
I think that's a huge lesson. But what I'm curious about, as we kind of come to the end, do you have like a final like lesson or thing that you'd like to kind of share as of where you are in your journey that you've learned, or something, a message that you'd like to pass on?
I definitely think that the key to growth is just giving things a crack, like as uncomfortable, but like just taking that first step and dipping your toe into the discomfort, right? I'm just such a huge believer in the fact that we are wrought with fear of certain things, and we might not realize them, and we might not be able to put it into words yet. But by starting to just try new things, pushing yourself into the unknown, dipping your toe into uncomfortable activities, whether that's the gym, whether that's asking for a pay rise, whether that's presenting, all these kind of things. I think the biggest lesson is just to start doing that. And you will, obviously there's no guarantees, but with the experience, I think there's experiences you'll have within yourself, whether that's your own mental development, personal development, or the people that you meet, you'll just have a completely new outlook on life. And that it's like, it is the kind of key to living from what I've found and from what I've seen, living an incredibly fulfilling life starts with discomfort and starts with fear. So you kind of just got to work through that. And the key being incremental steps, not being like, I'm going to go and present. It's like, what can I do? What are the 5 steps before the presentation that I can do? So starting with presenting by yourself in your room by yourself, then presenting to a friend, then presenting to your family, then presenting to your colleagues, and then presenting in real life, if that's your goal, right? Yeah. So just dipping your toe in and then working incrementally up. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned for myself, and from now that I'm seeing with this boot camp that I'm doing. And so.
Amazing. So what I'd like to say first and foremost, so I want to talk more about that boot camp with you for sure. Because I'm really intrigued. But whereabouts can people find you?
Look, you can find me across TikTok at aaronb_TV, or my Instagram, which is the same handle, or my YouTube, which is just my name, Aaron Barnes. And then, so they're I post very like the same content across all 3. So whether you don't have TikTok or Instagram, whatever, you can find me across with very similar stuff all the way around. That's where you can find me.
Amazing. So I'm really grateful you were able to give your time today. I've been inspired already by you, so I'm really intrigued to see where it goes. I want to talk
and
to you
right
more
back
about
at you.
Yeah. Oh, dude, amazing. I love it. So I'm intrigued to talk to you more as time goes on and kind of learn more about like your process and support you in any way like you need. And yeah, man, I'm just really grateful you're able to share your story and spread your message. And I'm like really happy that I was able to discover you and you were able to come on the show, man. So I'm really grateful. So thank you.
And I just want to say thank you so much. I absolutely, I've loved the conversation, and I thank you for giving me a platform to kind of talk about this kind of stuff. And also, yeah, I think what you're doing with your podcast is just fantastic. And I know there's probably been a lot of stuff we've talked about today, but and probably a lot to unpack. But hopefully, there's been something that we've talked about that you can relate to, that your audience can relate to. So again, thank you so much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've loved chatting to you. And yeah, we'll absolutely keep in touch.
Amazing. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.